the Ethiopian church took all of this literature, which included literature that nobody considered scripture at the time, and they appeared to have just been non-discretionary and included everything.
A page that was never meant to survive has finally come to light. Preserved in secrecy by Ethiopian monks, this ancient text was once ordered to be destroyed, yet it endured. Within its lines, it speaks openly and unmistakably about Jesus. For generations, this page remained hidden, whispered about, but never revealed. Why was it considered so dangerous? What truth did it contain that powerful authorities wanted erased from history? Now that it has surfaced, scholars and historians are stunned. The words written on this fragile page challenge long-held assumptions and force experts to reconsider what they thought they knew about the earliest beginnings of Christianity. What was once forbidden is now reshaping the story, and the implications are far bigger than anyone expected.
This is homegrown Christianity. Long before it was the religion of the Roman Empire, it was the religion here in Ethiopia. Ethiopia was the first Christian kingdom in the world.
This story looks nothing like the version of history most of us learned in school. While much of the world was still arguing over basic beliefs and rules, Ethiopia was already living out this faith. What you're about to see is a text the world was never meant to read, one many were never even supposed to know existed. It comes from a forgotten kingdom that encountered the truth long before the rest. And to understand how this happened, we have to begin in a place where time itself feels frozen. For centuries, thousands have gathered around Axum Cathedral, worshipping in the same way their ancestors did hundreds of years ago. The rituals haven't changed, the devotion hasn't faded, but behind those thick stone walls, something else was being guarded, something never meant to be revealed. For a very long time, strict orders were given to ensure certain writings disappeared forever. Those in power wanted history told one way, and this page didn't belong in that version of the story, so it was hidden, protected, nearly erased. Until now. Ethiopian monks are known for one thing above all else: protecting secrets from anyone who tries to erase them. For them, these ancient writings are worth more than gold, worth more even than their own lives. They believe some truths are meant to be guarded, no matter the cost. And when you look closely at the historical record, a powerful reality becomes impossible to ignore. Ethiopia embraced Christianity far earlier than almost anyone else. In the 4th century, King Ezana of Axum declared Christianity the official religion of the kingdom, sometime in the 320s or 330s. That moment reshapes everything. It places Ethiopia at the very forefront of Christian history, yet most timelines barely mention it, despite the fact that this is one of the most important chapters of the entire story. To put it in perspective, Roman Empire didn't officially adopt Christianity until the year 380. That means Ethiopia was more than 50 years ahead of Rome. While leaders in Rome were still debating beliefs and doctrines, an African kingdom was already living out the faith every single day. This completely challenges the idea that Rome was the birthplace of Christian power. In truth, Ethiopia stood as a major center of belief long before Europe produced its famous Bibles. We have physical proof of this in the Garama Gospels, ancient manuscripts written in gold ink using the sacred language of Ge'ez. Scholars from Oxford University have studied these texts and confirmed they are among the oldest Christian manuscripts in existence. Some pages date back to around the year 390. These are not just old books, they are breathtaking works of art, evidence of a sophisticated, wealthy, and deeply intellectual culture. A civilization that did not need Europe to explain the message of Jesus. Ethiopia already had its own teachers, its own artists, and its own understanding of the faith, centuries before the Middle Ages even began. Ethiopia was never a small or powerless society. It was a strong, independent civilization with its own currency and major trade connections reaching far beyond its borders. This was not a people searching for approval. They were confident leaders who understood exactly what they were doing with their faith and their culture. That independence is what allowed Ethiopia to grow in such a unique way. They spoke about God using their own language and their own symbols. And while much of the world was losing its sacred writings to war, fire, and collapse, Ethiopia was protecting theirs. As libraries burned elsewhere, monks high in the mountains carefully copied these texts by hand, again and again. They made sure the voices of the past would never disappear. That is why modern scholars are stunned today. In Ethiopia, they are uncovering material they believed had been lost forever, like finding a missing piece of a puzzle that vanished 2,000 years ago. Ethiopia is not a footnote in history. It is central to the story. Even now, monks continue to guard knowledge that could reshape how we understand the past and possibly the future. To see why this matters so much, we need to look at what makes these books so extraordinary. Ethiopia is the only place on earth that preserves the complete versions of two of the most important ancient texts ever written, the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees. Everywhere else in the world, these works survive only in fragments. You might find a few lines in Greek or a short passage in Hebrew, but never the full texts. Put simply, if a scholar today wants to read these books from beginning to end, there is only one place they can go: Ethiopia. For centuries, Western researchers searched caves, ruins, and forgotten libraries, hoping to uncover even a small scrap of these writings. Many spent their entire lives trying to guess what the missing pages once said. All the while, Ethiopian monks already had the complete books, reading them, praying with them, and treating them not as museum pieces, but as part of everyday spiritual life. This is the part that challenges the idea that history only unfolded in Europe. When ancient scrolls were eventually discovered elsewhere, fragments of these same books appeared, confirming how important they were to early religious communities. These were not strange side stories. They were central to how people understood faith, the world, and their place within it. And Ethiopia had been preserving that understanding all along. So why were these books rejected by the Western churches in the first place? The answer most people never hear is simple: control. Church leaders in the West wanted a short, fixed list of texts, something easy to manage, easy to teach, and useful for keeping everyone aligned under the same authority. They weren't interested in writings filled with vast mysteries, angelic beings, or visions of the cosmos. Those kinds of books raised too many questions. Instead, they favored texts that reinforced structure and power within the church. But Ethiopia followed a very different path. Ethiopian believers embraced books that spoke about angels, hidden knowledge, and the deeper structure of the universe. They weren't concerned with what leaders in Rome or Constantinople decided. Isolated in the mountains and far from imperial politics, they made their own choices. These writings shaped how people in Ethiopia understood reality itself. To them, the universe wasn't cold or mechanical. It was alive with meaning, wonder, and spiritual power. This isn't just a story about ancient manuscripts. It's about an entire culture preserving a different way of thinking. While wars, political struggles, and religious disputes wiped out libraries across Europe, Ethiopian monks protected these texts, sealing them away in stone chests and hidden sanctuaries. As Western records were edited, rewritten, or destroyed, Ethiopia quietly kept the originals safe. Today, leading scholars are finally admitting something remarkable. Without these Ethiopian texts, our understanding of early Christianity is incomplete. We've been missing half the story. Ethiopia wasn't preserving these books only for itself. It was preserving them for the entire world. And this leads us to an even deeper mystery. According to Ethiopian tradition, there are teachings of Jesus that Rome tried to suppress, words spoken during the 40 days after his resurrection, before his ascent to heaven. Those teachings are said to be recorded in a book known as the Book of the Covenant, Mashafa Kidan. This is no ordinary manuscript. Ethiopian tradition holds that it preserves what Jesus taught his followers during those final 40 days, teachings almost no one in the modern world even knows exist. And that brings us straight into the next great mystery. It's almost like a private spiritual classroom, where the most important teachings were shared only with those closest to Jesus. And when you look more closely, you realize this story isn't about rules or religious laws at all. It's about inner change, about transforming the heart and building a real, living connection with God. This book doesn't focus on church systems or who should hold authority. Instead, it speaks about deep prayer, inner stillness, and finding peace within yourself. The number 40 carries enormous weight throughout history. Moses spent 40 days on the mountain. The people of Israel wandered the desert for 40 years. So a text centered on the 40 days after the resurrection carries profound meaning. For more than 1,000 years, monks in Ethiopia have studied this book and used it to train new spiritual leaders. Some people online claim this is a recent discovery, but that's simply not true. These writings have been carefully preserved and read by Ethiopian monks since ancient times. What is new is that readers in the West are finally encountering these teachings in English. Even now, translations are incomplete, and much of the deeper meaning is still being uncovered. Modern scholars are only beginning to catch up to what the Ethiopian Church has understood for centuries. This reveals something important. Faith didn't develop the same way everywhere. In the West, religion became focused on structure, hierarchy, and control. In Ethiopia, it remained centered on the spirit and the heart. They were never ruled by kings in Rome, never forced to abandon the books they cherished. They were free to preserve what mattered most to them. The teachings in this book are both practical and profound. They describe how to pray, how to stand, and how to open yourself to a sense of divine presence. They explain how life looks different once you understand that death is not the end. The tone throughout is gentle and healing. It doesn't rely on fear or punishment. Instead, it invites people toward a better, more peaceful way of living. For the monks in the mountains, this way of life mattered more than anything else, and it still does. These teachings were protected because the monks believed they came straight from the lips of Jesus himself. And because they remained so devoted, those words are still alive and readable today. What this reveals is something most people never realized. The distance between Rome and Africa was far greater than anyone imagined. As history moved forward, the difference between Ethiopia and the rest of the world became impossible to ignore. History didn't follow a single path. It split into two very different directions. One path was shaped by Rome. The other was shaped by the ancient city of Axum. Both were asking the same deep questions about faith, truth, and meaning, but they arrived at very different answers. In the Roman world, faith slowly became about order, agreement, and control. Leaders wanted everyone across their vast empire to believe the same things. Unity made governing easier, and organization helped them stay in power. That's why they held large councils and created official lists deciding which books were acceptable and which were not. Many people believe that a single meeting in the year 325 chose the books of the Bible, but that's not actually accurate. That gathering focused mainly on defining who Jesus was, not on finalizing scripture. The official list of books used in the West wasn't settled until much later. But while Rome was busy creating rules, Ethiopia was doing something very different. Ethiopia was creating a home for the spirit. They weren't trying to build a massive institution or control belief across an empire. They wanted a direct, personal connection to the sacred. And because Ethiopia was never conquered by Rome or ruled by European powers, they were free to preserve their own spiritual path. They didn't have to think the same way as the West. They didn't have to follow Rome's rules. They were able to keep their own way of believing, and that freedom changed everything. They preserved books like the Book of Enoch and the Book of the Covenant, Mashafa Kidan, because those writings spoke directly to the heart. Calling it an important decision barely begins to describe it. It reshaped the entire course of their history. Ethiopia's collection of sacred texts is far larger than the one used in the West. It includes many writings that Western church leaders chose to exclude. Not because those books were false or dangerous, but because they didn't fit Rome's plan for a tightly controlled, orderly church. Ethiopia wasn't interested in turning faith into politics. They chose texts filled with visions, angels, and the deep mysteries of God. This wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate choice. They believed these books mattered, not for power, but for the soul. And today, that choice matters more than ever. Many people are growing tired of rigid systems and surface-level belief. They're searching for something more personal, more alive, more real. And without realizing it, they're beginning to look toward the path Ethiopia has been walking for nearly 17 centuries. The ancient Ge'ez manuscripts and mountain libraries aren't just relics from the past. They're more like a map, showing a different way to experience spirituality. They remind us that you don't need massive institutions to find truth. Sometimes all you need are the right words and a heart willing to listen. While others were busy building empires, Ethiopia remained faithful to this simple idea. And now, the rest of the world is finally beginning to understand the value of what they protected. So here's the question. Is it possible we've been following the wrong version of history for nearly 2,000 years? And what might your life look like if these ancient teachings had been part of the story from the very beginning? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to explore more hidden mysteries like this one, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about the unseen side of our world.